Hello, and thanks as always for listening. My name is Bryan, host of the Plant Podcast. The Plant is brought to you by ThinManager Software, the global leader in thin client management and mobility solutions. ThinManager is a Rockwell automation technology. In this episode of The Plant, I had a chance to talk with Will Aha from Panacea Technologies. Panacea has used ThinManager in projects that are truly creating a unique and revolutionary way to use the software in the biolab and pharma technology space. Hello and welcome to The Plant. I'm your host, Bryan Harned, and joining me today is Will Aha from Panacea Technologies. Panacea Technologies is a platinum-level ThinManager system integrator partner. They have been delivering cutting-edge solutions for their customers for well over 20 years. Panacea was recently featured on the ThinManager blog with a story about deploying ThinManager as part of a benchtop bioreactor solution for a customer. They even won a Pharma Innovations Award for the project. Will, thanks for joining me today and agreeing to talk a little about the amazing solution and the amazing way that Panacea has implemented ThinManager. Before you get going, why don't you give us a little history on yourself, how long you've been with Panacea, and how long you've been doing integration work?
Yeah, so actually lucked into automation. I had a co-op at a plant out in California, and I was with two other plant engineers, and we got randomly assigned some automation homework, and the other two ended up going in the design space and then some like color recognition space, respectively. And I got assigned to a plant maintenance manager that handed me a slick 505 and said, figure out how to program this by the time you come back on Monday. So that's how I jumped into automation, absolutely fell in love with the industry. Thought it was one of the coolest things ever to really go by plants and see them for more than just buildings and always kind of wonder what was going on inside. So that's how I got my start into the industry. And I've been with Panacea 4 years this week, actually. Panacea has been around a lot longer than that. They've been around since 1996. Kind of interesting company because system integrators kind of take one of a couple of paths. You can either really buckle down and focus on an industry or a subset of industries and really do everything within there, or kind of expand out and do a little bit of everything. And Panacea really buckled down into the regulated industry space, specifically pharma and biotech. And so we've been doing projects there since 1996. We've been doing projects since before there were standards for a lot of things that guide what we do now. So it was kind of interesting to be around, in the advent of things like Part 11 and all of that as a company. So really neat time to jump into the industry as things were kind of solidifying, and that's what we do now. We pretty much handle all projects from from the HVAC and building automation side down to the actual growing the cells and harvesting them and everything but packaging pretty much. So it's a really, really neat place to be in because a lot of the systems that we do are in a lot of the pharmaceuticals that are made in the U.S.
I think that's neat. You know, when you get into a niche like that, like in pharma, I think a lot of times that's where your best innovation comes from too. When you're not trying to be broad for everybody, but you really start to focus on
Exactly.
one.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, well, you guys just did a story with us on the ThinManager blog about your benchtop bioreactor project and really the solution you came to for your customer. And I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about that project and the challenges and just some of the requirements that got you guys, to the end result.
So to your previous point, it's now called the Panacea OpenBIO. Because the Panacea automated fermenter control system seemed like a mouthful. So we decided to name it something different. But that really was born out of our focus on the industry. So you talked about what happens when you really become a niche inside of an industry. And that's what happened with us. So since we live and breathe pharma and biotech, you start to see little places where improvements can be made or where something, there should be a new product built or something like that. And OpenBIO really came out of that. It started with a specific client, but the problems were really problems that were being faced by everybody in the industry. So we were dealing with this lab space where you have these benchtop bioreactors, and for the listeners that don't know what that is, it's really a fermentation vessel that cells are grown in that can fit on the top of a bench. That's why it's called benchtop. So it's usually less than 100 or 200 liters, sometimes 250 liters. So it's a fairly small scale. You'll see, almost like mason jar size up to bigger bucket size, where they're running tests, or companies may have a new cell line that they want to try out. So they try all the different ways that you can control the different variables of the process to see what's going to produce the best cell or the most of the cell, things like that. So you see this in lab spaces, and you see this in scale up processes as well. And they were, I mean, the existing technology is just behind what we would expect in the manufacturing space, or what we'd expect in consumer space, really. So we were dealing with clients that had uh, benchtop bioreactors that were built with entirely non-open sourced hardware, so things that are white labeled, and it's really tough to get a hold of. You would have these deals where there'd be two reactors that you could control at a time, and that's it. So you got a screen mounted in the middle of them, and you might accidentally control the one on the right side when you mean to control the one on the left side. Sometimes they're deployed in groups of six, where you have a screen that's at the end of a row of reactors, and you have to control a reactor that's all the way on the other end. And a really funny story about that. The real aha moment that came out of, we really need to do something, is we were touring this state of the art biotech lab. I mean, it was really fancy. There was the floor to ceiling windows, had all the every gadget you could possibly imagine on the inside. I mean, it really was state of the art, and it looked amazing. It was kind of like watching something on TV. And we walked through it, and we were watching scientists run around, and they had a partner scientist sitting on the end of the row looking at the screen, holding a Microsoft Surface, because that's where they had their lab notebook on, a paper notebook so they could do calculations and record data, kitchen timers that were going off, and they were having their partner read data that was sitting on the reactor on the end of the row, because they couldn't take their screen with them. Then they were going back to a main computer and inputting the data on there. And then it feeds, which is whenever you might feed the cells that are in there. The timers for that were going off, so they had to go and scale their feeds. And we were looking at this, and it was just crazy to us that such a state of the art facility was running in this manner, because you wouldn't expect that in the manufacturing space. You should be able to start it and just let it do its thing. Have some intelligence built in to kind of tweak it. And the really big one is, it would be awesome if their HMI was with them. I mean, to be able to walk up to a reactor and make changes right there is something that was important. So we really started to drill down and focus on the user interface, which is what brought us into ThinManager. So we were able to develop this platform that works on tablets, and that's the great thing about ThinManager, is where it doesn't matter if it's Apple, like iPads, ranging from the little small tablets to what I like to call the cafeteria tray tablets, because you kind of have to strap them to your arm to use them.
Right.
Or you can use any Microsoft tablet, or your computer if you want to. We've done deployments where they're on rolly carts. So you have a rolly cart that's got a computer and a scanner on there, so that you can scan the codes. But without getting ahead of myself, the focus became on the user interface. We wanted scientists to be able to walk into a lab, pick up a tablet that they're used to using in their consumer life, and go interact with the process, because we thought this would be a great way to train people. This would be a great way to control the process. And there'd be no doubt what reactor you'd be controlling, because using the QR code relevance feature, you have to sit there and take a picture of the code on the front of the reactor, and then boom, you know that you're controlling it. We even added colored stickers and colored backdrops on the HMI application, so that the colors would match, and that was a secondary form. So that was really the focus of what we wanted to do, and we really started to have a whole brainstorm session on how can we make this better. And so it kind of just started out as a pet project, and we thought we're going to make this really cool platform. And we had a client that really liked it, and liked it over what they were currently moving forward with, and decided to implement it. And that's really where we got our start.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge bump in efficiency, to say the least. What kind of? I mean, you said you had a customer who really liked it, but I mean, just the overall. Have you had a chance to talk to some of the scientists and really get some feedback on what they thought and how it helped the productivity?
Oh yeah, we actually it's been a very hectic last couple of weeks, because we only launched this probably, I think, 5-6 months ago. It hasn't been that long since we launched it, and word of mouth started to spread pretty quickly. We went to a couple of trade shows, and we actually have a marketing unit that we take with us. And the look on people's faces is priceless, because even if we can't bring the demo unit in with us, 'cause it's like the size of a big computer tower. we'll go into scientists and start talking to them about it. And they say, oh, we want to see the software. So I carry an iPad with me in my backpack. I'm able to open that up. I tether to my cell phone, which I usually just prop up against a window because it can be in lab facilities.
Sure.
It's great. But to show them that on just a couple of bars of LTE connection, and we VPN back into our home office virtual infrastructure, and they right there have the actual software. So not even a demo software, but they're running the software that we use internally to test things. And right away, without really needing to think about it, they're interacting with it. There's not even really a learning curve. There's not well, here's where the different buttons are. They right away know, oh, here's where my feeds are. Here's how I set a batch up. And then being able to show them that you can swipe across to go to the image that contains some batch parameters, so they can look at that to be able to swipe the other way and go to an image that gives them kind of an overview of their lab. And it was really amazing to see them interact with it. And then to let them know, by the way, it's got pretty much automatic everything. So automatic feeds, automatic temperature shifts, automatic pH shifts. It's got intelligence to allow you to do that in every way that a scientist could want to. So it's kind of like giving them the tools to do whatever they want to, and then an interface on a tablet to build it out very quickly. That's such a cool moment to see, because they're like, oh, well, is this an app on the iPad? I'm like, no, I'm just tethered to my phone. And then it starts to click. Well, because their first question is always, well, is wireless a problem? How does your network need to be? And then when they can see that, it really opens up a lot of doors.
Yeah, that's honestly one of the coolest things I have found about working for ThinManager is, when you do training and when you're showing somebody the product at, whether it be at a trade show or in an actual training, and you show them something that applies directly to a way they would use it, whether it be the QR code and taking HMIs or, any of that kind of stuff. And you see the look on their face when they're like, oh my gosh, I need that.
Yep. And even the real kicker is so we were at a trade show, the ISPE trade show up in Boston a couple of weeks ago. And there's a couple of moments where you have people roaming around, and the tablet that we use to showcase how the software works gets taken. So I've got the ThinManager app on my phone. So my counterpart had the tablet, and I just real quick, someone wanted to see it, so I pulled up my phone, opened up the ThinManager app, and took a picture. And then right there, it was on my phone, so they're able to interact with it there. And it really opens up their eyes to what's possible, because I think that there's so many articles right now about mobility and mobile HMIs, and it's talked about very much how I think IoT was talked about before it really got any traction. Is really this pie in the sky. Wouldn't a mobile control room be great? And then to be able to actually go hands-on with a working platform, because we're simulating all these reactors back in our home office, and to be able to actually interact with real things is pretty cool. And the reaction is always awesome too, and it always leads to, well, let's learn more about this.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you just show them pictures or a PowerPoint or something, I mean, you can still get your point across, but there's no mistaking when they actually see stuff in a live environment.
Yep. Yeah. And integration, the QR code integration and the relevance, I mean, that even was fun for our development team, because we wanted a way to just make it seem like it was automatic. So we actually had a design contest where we had our engineers enter in their own QR codes. And so we had a couple engineers that built software that would generate really neat looking QR codes and integrate it with our logo. So when you look at it at the front of it, it's the Panacea Technologies logo, the QR code's over it, and that's the same logo everywhere. So they're always going to the same thing. It's just that each QR code is slightly different. So it was neat. We had a whole judging process of which QR code would win and things like that. So it really made it a fun event during the development process here.
That's very cool. Well, so you guys won an award for this project.
Yes.
And I wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about what the award was, and I guess if you can tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we won the one of the innovator awards for Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Magazine this year, and the award it's a really, really awesome award, and we're really excited about it because there's not really categories for it. So what it is that different products get nominated, and then there's a team of industry people that take a look at what's there, and they pull out what the most innovative technologies are as a whole, and then present awards to all of them. So it's not as if we won the innovator award just for our specific category with bioprocessing, or fermentation or benchtop reactors. It was we were one of the people named industry wide. So it could be that there was a really neat mass flow controller that did something interesting that no one else had done before, or there was a couple of them that were diagnostic software and things like that that were really pushing the edge of what was possible in bioprocessing. And to see OpenBIO win that was so awesome, because the comments that we got back were not only around the smarts that are built internally, but just the tablet interface and not being tethered to a screen, or not having limitations on number of reactors you can add, or not having limitations on being able to run recipes on any fermenter you want to, or being able to access your, like, it's a scientist and you're at home and something's going wrong, to be able to open it up. We have a camera on the top of it, so being able to actually look at your process on your cell phone and then make changes if you need to. They felt that that was really pushing the bounds of what was going on in the bioprocessing space. And so to get that was a huge, huge win for our team, and something that we were really proud of.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if anything validates your feeling of being innovative, having the recognition from the industry like that, I mean, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, and it's kind of a big burden that we place on all of our engineers here, because one of our taglines for our company is innovative, dedicated, and award winning. And the award winning is a bit of a bold statement we put there, because we win an award of some sort every year almost, and it's something that we always push our team to look for ways to be innovative and look for things that we can do to showcase what we're good at, and showcase why we're always pushing the bounds of what people are doing in the industry, like with mobile HMIs and replacing thick clients with tablets and things like that. And so it's a tall order for our team. So this was a big one to bring in, because it really matched up with what we like to portray ourselves as.
Very cool. Well, do you guys have, I mean, you obviously have other people interested. Do you think you're going to roll out, the same solution moving forward on other projects to other labs and stuff like that?
Yeah, we actually already are. So that's something that's already in the works. And so the OpenBIO has transitioned really from what started out as a pet project of sorts, and an initial deployment, to multiple deployments. And so we're treating this just like any uh, product manufacturer would treat it, and have created marketing and a whole campaign around it, separate from the services that we do as a company, and we expect it to grow. So we've had meetings ever since we were up in Boston for the trade show, and word of mouth is starting to get around for what they can do. I think the one that kind of changed it is when the first client that we deployed it at got a chance to go hands on, and people got to see what it was capable of. The word of mouth kind of trickles around the industry. The automation industry is small, but pharmaceutical and biotech within automation is even smaller. So word travels
Yeah.
there. Yeah, so we expect to support this as a product, and already have a second revision in the works that does a few different things and has a couple of extra features on it. So it's something that we're really excited to support long term.
That is awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's an OEM solution using ThinManager, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean with ThinManager, the other cool part is what you can do with it once it's deployed is almost endless. So answering questions, that's the other thing, is seeing people get excited about what it can do. So hey, is it possible to make a dashboard screen that shows what's going on, that we can put on a big screen TV in the lab? Absolutely. I mean, that's something that's so easy with ThinManager. We can just spin up the whatever dashboard screen we want to and have it displayed there. We can have it displayed on because most of the buildings you walk into, TVs just have little thin clients on the back of them. So we can pretty much show it anywhere in the building if you wanted to, and to be able to spin it up at your desk, and to be able to do things without actually having to gown up and go into the space. I mean, that it really allows a lot even once it's there, because it's built on ThinManager, so you can pretty much do anything you want with it afterwards.
That's really cool. Now, I do have a question for you, and I'm sure my development team loves when I do this, but I am wondering, since you've dealt so much with the product, moving into the future, are there any features of ThinManager you'd like to see incorporate? Any pet projects for us that you could think that we could roll into ThinManager in the future?
So there's actually two. One's more of just like a compatibility with Rockwell stuff, since now you guys are a Rockwell technology. More integration with some of the factory talk platforms would know that there's a lot of things that work great, passing between tablet action and like swiping gestures and things like that. So that's just a minor request. But the big one that we had talked about that we think would be so cool if ThinManager had was something like a FaceTime type feature that Apple has, or any sort of video chat where you could talk to somebody that they could use a web camera, and on a tablet you could use both the front-facing camera and the rear camera. Because what we were thinking is that if you had somebody in the lab, or even we've done a lot of projects with ThinManager outside of this. So even in the deployments where we've done tablet-based control in the manufacturing space, being able to talk to a technician where you're sitting in front of a paddle or you're sitting in front of a process, and being able to have your tablet and show the person on the other end what's going on, and then maybe have like a little picture-in-picture thing on the screen to where they can see your face and you can see their face, so it kind of gives you the feel that they're there. We think that that would make productivity just skyrocket. I mean, there's so many places where if you've ever had to go into a pharmaceutical facility, the gown process to get into a manufacturing space is very extensive, and not everybody has it. So if you could provide a way for multiple people to be there virtually without actually being there, that would be huge.
That's really cool. Actually, I really like that idea. I'm gonna have to suggest that. No, I think that's a really cool idea. And we have version 11 coming out in December, and I do believe there's a lot of work with Factory Talk integration becoming a tighter thing. So I think that's actually already in the works. But I love the idea of a FaceTime thing. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think that mobile HMIs are not they're not that far out there. I know if you look at the articles, maybe a year ago, there was a lot of like, oh, this will never happen, and it was all the typical people were worried about reliability and wireless networks and things like that. But we actually have one of our more experienced than manager engineers up in Montreal right now at the ISA conference, and he's specifically presenting on thin clients and mobility, specifically mobile HMIs, and specifically within that, talking about ThinManager deployments. And he said that he was a little bit worried because, especially at ISA conferences, things around HMIs can get very heated. I remember, I believe it was the ISA 101 standard when they were going through that. There were some of the most heated meetings I've ever been in before. And so he was a little bit worried about some of the questions he was going to get, but he said that people were ecstatic about it, and there was a lot of people wanting to know about what steps they need to take to deploy it, and how they can get there, what training looks like, things like that. So I don't think it's that far away in the future for deploying these.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, we have found a lot of people, or a lot of customers, where they say, the salesperson says, they don't seem that interested in mobility. We don't really need to talk about that. And then next thing you know, they're like, oh, tell us about relevance, or let's talk. And it seems like it's on the mind of everybody, whether they've deployed any kind of mobility or not. People are thinking about it, and people are using tablets and phones, and they want to know what's possible.
Yeah, and I think from a lifecycle management standpoint, if you can separate a hardware and software layer and have two different management cycles for both of those, when you have something like thin clients, the management is incredibly easy. I mean, your thin client breaks, you can get a new one. If your tablet breaks, you can get a new one, and that's still not that you should have the attitude of let's get new tablets and thin clients all the time, but it's still more cost effective than replacing thick clients on a regular basis, because the development cycles for them are getting much quicker than they used to be. I mean, it used to be every 10 years and every 6 years, and now it's every 1 to 1.5 years. You see a new version with some new complex migration path, and being able to maintain your software in one location and maintain your hardware. I mean, you can extend life cycles to 10 or 15 years, which is really incredible. It cracks us up because we have a lot of customers that point out that we seem to have regressed, even though the technology is better. So we started out with this concept of a mainframe and a terminal to access that mainframe, and then it was no, everybody gets their own personal computer, and the application is going to be there, and which made sense because memory and processing got a lot cheaper. Now we're back to, hey, everything's going to be stored in one area, and you've got a terminal to access it. So we always get that joke, but the technology is much better.
Yeah, it's like a full circle. It's like fashion.
Yep.
It just comes back around. All right. Well, Will, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been great stuff. I think it's really cool what you guys have done with ThinManager, and with just biotop reactors in general. I think you guys are really excelling, and I think there's going to be cool stuff in the future.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having us.
That's all the time we have for this episode of The Plant. To learn more about Panacea Technologies, visit their website at panaceatech.com. As always, for more information on ThinManager, visit thinmanager.com. I'm your host, Bryan Harned. We look forward to talking to you next time on The Plant.